Started. So at this time, I call this meeting to order of the Village Council regular meeting for Tuesday, June 11th, 2019. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Bailey.
Here.
Frost.
Here.
Helmut.
Yes.
Logan.
Here.
Kemp.
Here.
Before we approve the agenda, I wonder if we can move the closed session to after item 12. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Davis had a reason for putting it there. If you talked to him.
Well, I had a reason for putting it there because the two insurance lawyers are supposed to be here. They're not here, so
I see.
so much for my reasoning.
Okay.
Maybe we just handle it immediately following the agenda item we're on when they get here.
Okay.
Table it to lower on the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda with the understanding that item number 7 may be adjusted informally during the meeting.
Support.
There's a motion with support to approve the agenda with item number 7 being revisited later in the meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the motion carries. The agenda is approved. We'll move on to presentations. And this evening, we have a presentation from Main Street, Oakland County. As many of you know, Main Street, our downtown is a member of Main Street, Oakland County, and is a nationally accredited Main Street program. So I won't steal Mr. Bry's thunder, but we'll invite Mr. John Bry, Main Street, Oakland County Program Coordinator, to the podium to make this presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Bry. I'm a principal planner at Oakland County Economic Development and Community Affairs Office, and as President Frost mentioned, I'm also the program coordinator for Main Street, Oakland County. Oakland County, Oxford is one of 13 select-level Main Street communities out of 25 in the county, and every year we perform an annual evaluation on them using the 10-point criteria provided by the National Main Street Center. As I mentioned, there are 25 Main Street communities in Oakland County, but you're in good company because there's about 1,800 Main Street programs across the United States. Of the 25 in Oakland County, we nationally accredited 12 of them. So you're in rare company, including your neighbors just down the road that we presented to last night in Lake Orion. And right now across the county, Holly is receiving their accreditation presentation as well. So I won't go into the 10 points because we don't want to be here all night, but things like having adequate funding to operate your downtown program, your Main Street program, having a comprehensive work plan in place that covers the 4 points of Main Street, which are easy to remember because they spell DOPE: design, organization, promotion, economic vitality. So all those things are working in Oxford's favor. Not that everything is always perfect in any of the Main Street communities, but it's basically saying that on those 10-point criteria, that you're doing a good job and continue to work in a good direction that we know that will produce a vibrant and healthy downtown over time. So it's my honor tonight to also recognize Madonna Van Fossen, who is with SMART. And some of you may remember Madonna, who was also the DDA director in the past here in Oxford. She serves on our Main Street Oakland County Advisory Council. And Dr. Timothy Meyer, who's here from the office of L. Brooks Patterson, Deputy Director for Oakland County that oversees our department with Economic Development and Community Affairs. So I asked Dr. Meyer and Madonna to join me, and we'll present this to council, and anyone in the audience, Sue or anyone else who hears tonight representing the DDA, Main Street businesses, we'd like you to join us up front for a quick photo. And I'm going to pass this off to Dr. Meyer and ask if you'd like to say anything in addition to it.
Absolutely. First of all, Council, I'd like to congratulate your leadership.
I understand that it's very difficult as a politician to understand all of the needs of the community and be able to shape those into a vision. And our role as a county is to help you do that. We recognize your sovereignty and your independence, but we also recognize that we're all working together. And the Main Street program allows us to do that. And on behalf of Brooks Patterson, by the way, I was talking to him this afternoon. He was in the office. He wants to wish you with a most heartfelt and warm congratulations. He absolutely endears all of his communities that he works with, that he has the opportunity to provide county leadership to. And so on his behalf, I'd also like to extend his recognition and his congratulations. But I think it goes without notice that there's a whole team that John works with that works throughout the county with all the communities in providing access into the Main Street program, and especially looking at how we can, as a county, support you. And so I also need to extend recognition to John and the team that surrounds John in being able to work with you, and especially with the Main Street program. So there is a certificate and a recognition for that. And before we actually have the opportunity to award that, I would like to ask Madonna to come forward and reflect for a few moments.
Well, certainly. This is like deja vu. It's really good to be back home here. You know, I've been away for a little bit, but it's nice to come and see a lot of familiar faces. And I hold the Main Street program near and dear to my heart because it was so successful here, and it has the ability and the opportunity to do so much for communities. So I'm really proud that Oxford is receiving this award again.
Thank you.
So, council, if you would, we'd love for you guys to stand. We're going to take a photo. Anyone from the DDA? Sue, want to join? All right.
We're going around.
Looks like we're going to what you guys present. I'm going to be able to talk.
Isn't that gonna work?
He's got to learn how.
It's going to be a squeeze.
That's okay.
John, maybe you want to do it from there? Or?
You guys can squeeze together just a little bit more.
Put Madonna by the black.
We'll be like Big Ray last time.
You're out.
We've got the whole room. All right, 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2. Thank you. Congratulations. Last second, while everyone's taking their seats again, 15-second commercial. We do workshops and trainings for the Main Street communities. It's not just meant for the downtown businesses and the property owners, but the local leaders, volunteers as well. We have one coming up on June 19th in Pontiac. We have currently about 80 folks registered from all over Oakland County and beyond that's attending. Resolving conflict on Main Street, because as we know, there's never any conflict in Main Street or downtown revitalization or community development. So I'm going to leave these with you.
Thanks.
Just pass them on down. It's free, and we'd be happy to have more folks from Oxford attend. So again, congratulations, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Joe, before we go any farther.
Sure.
The young gentleman who brought the farmer's market is now here.
Oh, sure.
I wonder if we can move that up in the agenda. When he wasn't here, I wasn't worried about it, but possibly move it up to maybe between B and C, unfinished old business.
Is that
I'll
a-
support that. Is that,
That's okay. There's a motion with support to move the farmer's market new business item 11F up after the consent agenda?
well, if you want to move it up that high, I was gonna put it under Dayton Street, but we can move it up higher if you want.
Oh, I see. Yeah, Dayton Street's fine, under unfinished old business. Right after Dayton Street or right before it?
I don't care.
Okay, let's do it right before the Dayton Street.
Good idea.
All right, there's a motion with support to move the farmer's market, item 11F, to unfinished business following item 10A. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. We'll move on. There's no public hearings this evening. We have moved the closed session to after item 12. We are now at a call to the public. This call to the public is to listen to our residents and to hear what you have to say. And you're welcome to come to the podium. Let us know who you are, where you live, and we'll hear your concerns, hear your accolades, or whatever it may be.
May I comment?
Good evening, Council. Justin Danaskis with Danaskis Consulting and Development. Not quite residents with the new office, but 900 South Lapeer, Oxford in the Township, moved our local office right down the street. And I was before you about 2 years ago when you were having discussions initially on medical marijuana and cannabis, and now that there's been more recent discussion and so forth, just want to come back forth and reintroduce myself and so forth, as we worked in about 170 communities on this policy, from close ones like Lapeer and Hazel Park, Orion, amongst others, and very good optics through the work with a company called Weed Maps, which isn't looking to get a license here locally, but they are a technology platform. It's a multi-billion-dollar company that works on the technology side of it. So they have the data, the analytics, and optics to really couple with your local planning and zoning desires of the community. So as you take your time and look at it, using the data-driven, opportunity, looking coupled with, planning and zoning optics, and just, want to provide those resources as you start, continuing those discussions. So, and we're right up the street, so look forward to, being engaged in other projects. We do a lot of economic development and so forth throughout the state. So good to see everyone again, and looking forward to working on that policy and some others. So thank you.
Thank you. Our public comment is still open. Is there any other public comment this evening? Excuse me. All right, public comment going one more time. All right, seeing none, we will move on. And I've been informed that the gentleman that we were waiting on to go into the closed session for a legal update is now here. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter into closed session. This will be very brief, but during closed session, we will ask the public to leave momentarily, and then we will reopen the meeting.
Bob, do you know what MCL we're going under?
MCL 15.268.
Thank you, and sorry for the inconvenience.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under MCL 15.268, an update from our legal counsel.
Support.
There's a motion with support to enter into closed session
Let's put the time on.
at 6:43 PM. Do we need a roll call to go into closed
Yes, we
session?
do.
I think we do.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Bailey,
Yes.
Hellman,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
All right, we are now in closed. Okay, we are now in open session, and I'll entertain a motion as discussed in closed session.
I'll make a motion to follow the strategy discussed in closed session and to schedule a special meeting with our attorneys if necessary. To further meet with our attorneys, I think I said that backwards.
Support.
There's a motion with support to, hold on one second. There's a motion with support to follow the strategy discussed with our attorneys in closed session and to schedule a special meeting if necessary for the purposes of legal counsel. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah. Does the clerk have an adequate version of the motion? Okay.
All right,
And
Madam
of course,
Clerk.
you can always get it off of the video as well.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please. Roll call vote?
Bailey,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Hellman,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Frost.
Yes. Motion carries. We are moving on to our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to receive and file consent agenda items A.
Support? There's a motion with support to receive and file consent agenda items 9A. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Moving on to consent agenda items 9B.
I make a motion to accept
Agenda item 9B, to include the bills in the amount of $165,377.05.
Support.
There's a motion with support to approve consent agenda items 9B, the minutes of May 14th, May 20th, and May 28th, including the bills in the amount of $165,377.05. Madam Clerk, roll call, please. Excuse me, sorry. Mr. Madore?
I wanted to point out something that I wanted to get for those minutes. On the May 14th minutes, when we were talking about Dayton Street, it's page 3, line 98. The written agreement that includes restoring Dayton Street back to its original condition. I think the intent of that was restore the barricade back to its original condition.
I don't necessarily think that.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I wanted to.
What is it?
Okay.
It's a motion from the last meeting.
I wasn't sure if that was the intent of that statement. Okay, where it is now. All right. Okay, I wasn't sure if they were referring to the barricade at that time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, excuse me.
Kemp?
Yes.
Helmut?
Yes.
Logan?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to old business. 10A, the Oxford Township Sewer Construction Agreement.
Okay, that is in your packet. Mr. Renfro and Mr. Davis were working that back and forth, and the final product is in there for you to consider.
Mr. Davis, I have just one question. Section 8 of the agreement, page 2, consent to joint counsel. Can you explain to us why this would potentially be necessary?
Well, first of all, this type of agreement for this type of relationship is required by state law.
Okay.
If in fact there was a lawsuit that arose out of this agreement, which I can't imagine what it would be, we could have the right to select one lawyer to represent both the township and the village to save money.
I see.
So, because our interests would be aligned under this agreement.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, I have a kind of, I don't know, technical question. In item number 1, it says, "The purposes of the agreement are." I can only see one purpose in that whole paragraph. Is that an error? Is that normally the way lawyers write things? They use a plural even though there is only one item? Is that so that if you add another item later, you don't have to go back and strike the S at the end of purposes?
Yes.
Or, I was willing to consider there might be
Just the way we
another-
do it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought perhaps there was another purpose and it somehow or other didn't get printed into this.
I could give you a long answer on that, but yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Thank you, Mr. Davis. I move to approve the agreement between the Village of Oxford and the Charter Township of Oxford for permission to extend a township sanitary sewer line in the M24 right-of-way.
Support.
I think I heard Mr. Bailey first. There's a motion with support to approve this agreement. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Helmut? Helmut?
I heard ya. Yes.
Logan?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. The motion carries, and the agreement is approved. Moving on to the farmers market in the village. This was brought to us by Max, right? I think I called you Matt last time. I apologize for that. So Max was at our last meeting, and he presented to council a very interesting question, and that was, why do we not have a farmer's market here in the village of Oxford? And that's a very good question. About 4 years ago, when I was downtown development director, there was a farmer's market here, and myself and the village manager at that time worked with them to bring the farmer's market not from, they were meeting at the vacant lot at 14 North Washington, and they wanted to be where the people were. They were there on, I think, Thursday nights and Saturday mornings, and so they worked with us to have that farmer's market at the Concerts in the Park series that happens in the summertime. And for one reason or another, that group folks, lives happen, things change, and for one reason or another, the group that was doing that kind of just evolved away. And so I think it's a great idea to have a farmer's market. I think that having a farmer's market on a Thursday has certain advantages because many farmer's markets are Wednesdays and Saturdays. So if we could offer a farmer's market on a Thursday, again, in conjunction with our Concerts in the Park series, I think that would be wonderful. So I think it's a great idea. With the council's blessing, I think we should send this to the Downtown Development Authority. As we learned tonight, the Downtown Development Authority is a nationally accredited Main Street program. There's a Concerts in the Park series that they already do. So maybe the Downtown Development Authority takes a closer look at this. It may need to go on to their promotions committee to actually put this in action. But that'd be my recommendation, that we send it to the DDA and send it to the promotions committee. We still have time, and correct me, Mr. Medor, if I'm wrong, we still have time to get this on the DDA agenda for next Monday, correct?
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Bailey?
Yeah. Does anybody know whether there is a farmer's market presently within the Oxford community, but outside the village?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
so
Ms. Kemp?
thanks to a Facebook comment I saw by Connie, I called the Oxford Parks and Recs today. I spoke to them. They are talking, they're very preliminary, I want to make that clear, that they want to do a farmer's market over there in a pavilion that is yet to be built. So this is very preliminary, but I think we should talk with them as well and kind of see what their ideas are. And they wanted to thank Max, and I have information for you if you would like to call them Max. So just,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's one potential option, is that the Parks and Rec. I think there's a certain benefit to having one downtown, because ultimately, if it's out at Seymour Lake, our restaurants don't benefit from it, our shops don't benefit from it, our concerts don't benefit from it if it is the same night. So, but in saying that, we also don't want to duplicate efforts. Maybe we still send, again, Mo, I think you stepped out. My recommendation would be we send this to the DDA to figure out.
Can I tell you a
if at all.
normal complaint about farmers markets?
Sure.
Joe, let's pretend you own Joe's grocery store. And you pay to pave your parking lot, you pay to pay your building.
Right.
You pay for your dumpster to have it hauled away. People who own the farmers market sell the same product you do. They don't have to pave a parking lot, they don't have to put on a roof, they don't have to build a building, they don't have to pay for lighting. Many of the business owners feel some of the business owners feel it's unfair to allow these when they're paying for the brick and mortar.
And I hear that. I completely agree with you. However, most of our retail shops are closed by 6 o'clock anyways.
Just laying down the usual complaints that we get when this comes up to us.
No, I agree.
There's still the issue of how did that dumpster get full of trash sometime between Thursday night and Saturday morning, that's for sure. So when did that happen and who put that trash in that dumpster?
Sure.
I'm just speaking as devil's advocate here.
Sure, absolutely.
I don't claim that's a problem. I'm claiming it's possibly a problem.
Did anyone talk to Glenn about this?
Yeah, that's where I got the feasibility study.
Okay.
He wanted me to share that with you. He has had some conversations at DDA, I thought he said, in the past, probably before your tenure. It sounds like in the last 6-8 months. To what stage they're on, I don't know.
My only suggestion would be,
Ms. Logan?
yes, if it goes to DDA, which it sounds like it's on its way there, hopefully, my only suggestion to them would be to consider maybe limiting the amount of artesian type, style shops, and maybe really focusing on the food aspect of this, because I think with Max's intention, and surely what I would like to see more of is just the availability of local fresh produce.
Right. And I like that idea too, really having it be a farmer's market. The challenge we do have in Michigan, because of our climate, is that anything local, we don't have fresh local produce until late summer. And so I was at the Oakland County Farmers Market today, and right now there's a lot of plants, tomato plants and things like that you can purchase to plant, but there was no produce. There was flowers and other plants. Some large farmers markets in general, like Eastern Market, I just read an article last week that was complaining about this very same thing, that how come there's not enough local produce at that market, and that these vendors are trucking in sweet corn and lettuce and all that from other locations. But a lot of that is because of our climate. If you want sweet corn right now, you have to get it from elsewhere. If you want tomatoes, strawberries, unless they are grown in a greenhouse, it's not feasible. So with that being said, one of the reasons we start to see these artisanal crafts, if you will, is because you may only have one produce vendor there, or two produce vendors, and then how do you, it's like the chicken and the egg, how do you convince people to come to your market if there's only two vendors, and you can't convince the vendors to come to your market if there's only a couple people coming, so finding that balance. But I agree with Ms. Logan that it needs to be, local stuff, local items, and not that flea market style. We don't want that. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, later on in this same meeting, we'll probably be talking about a potential ordinance about hens. And as I gather, if people do have poultry within the village of Oxford, they would not be allowed to sell eggs at this farmer's market.
Correct.
Assuming that goes forward with the language which we think it will.
Correct. And some of that is state sanitary reasons.
Sure.
Yeah. Eggs and dairy are highly regulated, so it's difficult. Somebody could get those licensing, but you're correct.
For the volume that this hypothetical poultry facility would have, it's not worth going to the trouble to get licensed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, what's council's pleasure on this?
I say I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Make a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay.
Sorry, President. Make a motion to go ahead and refer this to the DDA for analysis and a decision based on what kind of timeline they'd like to see, what kind of style and structure regarding any kind of future farmers market in the village we'd like to see.
I will support, and I will comment that if anybody on DDA would like to know what the council thinks about this, just get the video and listen and see us talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. There's a motion on the floor to refer the farmer's market to the Downtown Development Authority with support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. So Max, what that means is that we're going to send this farmer's market topic to our Downtown Development Authority. That's another group that meets right here. They kind of look like us. I'm on that board, and it's their job to promote the downtown. And so they're better suited to get something like this off the ground than we are, if that makes sense. So again, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. We appreciate your involvement, and we'll keep you posted on how it turns out. Okay, buddy? Thank you.
And I will comment also.
Mr. Bailey?
The village council tries to do its best to make the job of the DDA easier, not harder. So they'll know that our heart's in the right place.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All right, moving on to the Dayton Street traffic enforcement update. And Mr. Davis, I understand that you presented an opinion.
Yeah.
Well, what I did was, using the existing tools that are available for this particular issue, I issued a memo on June 4th with the disobeying a traffic control device being what I thought was the most appropriate remedy for violations. And let me just talk for 1 second about why that I thought that was applicable. It does abstract to the license. It's 2 points on the license. It is a $130 flat fine. That's short of the court imposing its cost. I would think that somebody charged with disobeying this traffic situation would be in the mid-200s, 2 points on the license, which has a little profound effect on your insurance going forward, and that we would have a policy in place of no plea bargains. Many times disobeying a traffic device, the officers will, based on the circumstances, allow that to be impeding traffic, which is a non-abstracting, non-point money issue, which wouldn't be the remedy here. So absent developing some special statute and going through an ordinance development for this particular case, these tools are available to us under the current codes. And I would suggest that the chief would be right there enforcing these for violations. And there can be second offenses and there can be third offenses that would be handled as well.
Okay.
I think you have.
Mrs.
There's
Helmuth?
so much more to talk about on Dayton Street. than
Yeah,
this.
that was what I was asking.
How are we gonna enforce it? They can't have a cop standing there 24/7.
Well,
Was there not?
Hold on a second. I think one of my recommendations is that on either side, on the Dayton and Franklin side, in Waterstone, there would be signage that says, "Street closed to through traffic except emergency vehicles." Similarly, on the village side at Dayton and Pleasant. So that way you're getting that signage right as you turn onto Pleasant. Same language, street closed to through traffic except emergency vehicles. A secondary system, and I'm saying 2 signs, a sign on either side of the road, so it is unmistakable. Similarly in Waterstone, and then again at Dayton and Willow Street, those same signage. And maybe even under that sign, you know, whatever that enforcement minimum is. And frankly, I see $130 and, you know.
I know. It'll go up with court costs, but
Right.
that's where we're at.
So, and I'm hearing that this is kind of the minimum, but we could go stricter with that with local ordinances, correct?
But you'd have to go through the development of a special ordinance, which could be challenged
Right.
as being
I
a
see.
targeted
Okay.
ordinance scheme.
Mrs. Helmuth?
I think signs are wonderful, that has nothing to do with enforcement.
Correct.
We're gonna have cameras that are enforceable, good cameras.
No.
That MDOT paid for?
Enforce a lot of through cameras.
Have they, all those,
Not traffic.
so all those stoplight camera fines?
They're not, they're actually devices that move the light, they're not cameras.
Instead of all this headache, why don't they just put a gate there, remote?
So there's not gonna be any enforcement unless one of your officers is not busy at that time.
Correct.
I'd like to say that's unacceptable.
Chief, excuse me, Chief Sowald.
You call me Mr.
Sorry. Mr. Chief.
I know this is a touchy situation, the Beacon Street situation. I also live in that sub. My take on this is that it's going to be a burden for 6 months. This is for emergency vehicles. They are going to put this back to the way it was. But not thinking selfishly, I'm thinking if I have a loved one on the other side of Dayton Street and seconds count, I want them to get that help, regardless of how many vehicles go through there that we're not going to catch that shouldn't be doing it. We are going to force it to the best of our knowledge. 2 points, $130 fine. If you tack on people taking time off of work to fight these tickets, it takes time out of their day. A lot of them, they get attorneys because they want to fight it because they don't agree with the violation. So there's a lot of components behind that. And we plan on, and yes, we're obviously not going to be there all the time. We're going to do our very best, though, with the situation that's going to be happening on this side of town and the other side of town. There's going to be both those concentrations. I'm trying to look at the glass half full. This town is going to look fantastic when this is done. It's going to be a burden while it's getting done, but as a town, we can work together and get this thing, and it's gonna be nice when this gets done. We're gonna do the best that we can to enforce it. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna add extra enforcement over on the Glassby, Oxford Lake side, and also on this side. So it's gonna have extra enforcement than it would normally would have.
Thank you. Mrs. Helmuth?
I think you're silly if you don't think everybody's gonna use that road. I think you're silly if you don't think every kid in Waterstone whose mommy and daddy pays their bills isn't gonna use that road.
I didn't say they weren't.
And I don't think they're gonna care about $130 and 2 points. And I don't think they're gonna be caught. Because you guys have one officer on duty, and now they're watching on Glassby Street. We're over here on Dayton Street. And we all know, we don't want people to die because the house is on fire on the other side of the bridge. Well, yeah, boom, it's open. What are we gonna do to keep people from, that's over. It's open. What are we gonna do to keep people from using it?
If I'm looking at it from a standpoint of somebody's life is on the line as opposed to somebody driving through there, I think somebody's life on the line constitutes a better reaction to that.
I want both. It's open, now stop people from
Somebody's
using
gonna
it.
slip through, but somebody speeds every day and we don't get them either. I mean,
Well,
we can't be everywhere all the time, though.
Well, you know what?
But
But
we're
I
gonna do
want
the best
something
we
there.
can.
You know, everybody
And then when the
says.
6 months is over,
No,
we're gonna
everybody
put it back the way it
says,
was.
do it for the nice people. There's only a certain number of people who are gonna have to deal with this on our street. So I don't wanna talk about everybody else. Everybody's gonna look at how nice M24 is. We're still gonna be dealing with the fact that this road's open. What are we gonna do to enforce that opening?
I gave you my answer.
Thank you, Chief. Miss, hold on a second. Chief, thank you. Ms. Logan, did you have a comment? It looked like you had motioned for a comment.
That was like 5 minutes ago, now I've lost it. The only thing I can say in addition to what Chief Stallwood said was, I would hate to see our chief and our public safety resources wasted regulating a road that, when those resources could be, those efforts are needed
Agreed.
elsewhere in the village. So I think that we're kind of beating a dead horse with this one.
So there's no way to enforce that with a camera or with anything?
Well, we can't do it, we can't prosecute with, we can't win on a camera. We need a,
And Mr. Davis, can we require that any signage that is installed is done so at the cost of MDOT or the fire department and/or the fire department?
you can pass the cost of the signage, however you want to. I don't think you can mandate it, but you can pass it. You can add to the signage maximum penalty to be imposed. Again, you're driving down I-94, when you see a construction, it says, if you're speeding or you injure a worker, they're going to, take your house away. So you can put what you want on the signage to levy the importance of this. Chief, I don't know what else we've talked about. I don't know what else you can do with the resources you have.
Mr. Bailey?
Well,
Hold on one second. Mr. Bailey has the floor.
yeah. If I were inclined to do so, I don't see what is to prevent me from going out there with my phone and pretending to take license plate photos. And if somebody sees me doing this, they're not going to know that I'm not going to turn those photos into the police chief. They'll think, holy cow, I'd better not cut through in here anymore, which is what I would be that's what I'd be trying to achieve by pretending to take license plate pictures. So I don't see what there is to prevent me from doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
I might even do it for real. They don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Did you have another comment before I turn it over to this gentleman?
You can turn it over to that gentleman, I'll talk after him.
Okay. Sir, just state your name and your address and...
I live at 88 Dayton Street. My name is Larry Staley. I've lived there for 52 years.
Larry, if I could have you at the podium so that your voice could be heard on the video.
I've lived there for 52 years. If Oakland County is footing the bill for this, put a damn gate up.
Oakland County's not footing the bill for this.
Huh?
Oakland County's not footing the bill for this.
Well, Oxford's footing the bill for this?
I believe
No.
the fire chief said MDOT, the
MDOT.
Michigan Department of Transportation. The problem with a gate, sir, is that
Remote control. That's all you need.
Any
Solve the
failure,
whole
any
problem.
failure,
You don't
we're
need the
done.
cameras, you don't need the police on patrol down there all the time. Remote.
It's certainly an option, but when seconds count, seconds count. Ms. Basardi, you had a comment?
Sue Bizardi, Oxford. He kind of stole what my comment was going to be, but you guys have got 6 or 7 months before this really has to be decided. And before they be ripping up any ground. Rather than having this back and forth and arguing about it, can't we investigate or spend some time investigating whether you could have a gate there and operate it by remote control, or some other option that maybe we haven't thought of, rather than spending the time keeping arguing about it? Because I think there's probably a solution out there, but we just haven't thought of it yet.
Thank you. Mrs. Helmuth?
Another thing we haven't discussed is when are they going to open it?
There's certainly a lot of unknowns on this. So perhaps our police chief and the fire chief and the village manager need to sit down together and with one of us, or maybe it's a whole special meeting just to talk about this whole topic. I'm just thinking out loud.
We made a motion to allow them to open it. They could open it tomorrow.
Right.
Probably by April of next year would be the earliest.
But they could open it tomorrow.
Based on the motion.
Based on the motion. I'm wondering if we can clarify that motion? And we didn't state that it had to be put back after that, did we?
Yeah, that was in the motion.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'd like them not to be able to open it until after this council approves the date.
And approves the plan.
Right.
Because at this point, it's still conceptual. We've approved opening it, we've restoring it, but we don't know what any of that looks like. So I think at this point, we need to take it from that concept into a full-fledged plan with the guidance of our public safety professional, Chief Solwald, the fire chief, and the village president.
Can I?
Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, this is all very interesting. I've been listening to everything everybody said. And I'm reminded of the case of Oxford Lake subdivision, which also had a gate and which also was supposed to have some kind of control on that gate, which was supposed to prevent cut-through. And I was not sufficiently active in the village matters at the time, but somebody who has a longer memory than I do, like maybe someone over here, doubtless remembers that a lot better than I do, and so if you're interested, you can always ask her.
Who's her?
That's me.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Davis?
I stay away from policy advice, but there has been situations where you can, and Chief, maybe you and I can look at this, where there are breakaways where you put a barrier up and it appears to be a barrier, but for emergency vehicles, it collapses upon just hitting it. You know, you know what I'm talking about. They're breakthroughs. So emergency vehicles have the power to get through them, but it would deter normal traffic.
Okay.
When it comes to shove, my house is right next to it. Put a gate up, put a siren or some alarm in my house, and then it needs to be open. When the siren goes out, I'll go out and open them for
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Or you could just stand in the road the whole time.
Mr. Medor?
But the breakaway is an interesting, you should take a look at that.
I think initially, great, you granted Chief Schultz, Pete Schultz now knows that this can be the route, and the plan can begin as to how that route will be utilized and what plan will be used, what kind of gate or apparatus is possible. We can meet with him, and we can devise a plan and bring you back a couple options that would perhaps be suitable. A gate may be okay. They may balk at some of the costs, depending on the cost, because you're going to have to run power to it, things like that. I don't know. We don't know what those options are, but we're absolutely willing to look at those options.
A collapsing barrier.
Right. If it's something non-electrified, then that's possible also. So I think we should at least meet with Chief Schultz, MDOT, see what the parameters are, what plan they think would work, knowing the concerns. And we can
Thank you,
raise it
Mr.
back.
Madore. I move to appoint Chief Solwald, the village manager, Joseph Madore, and Fire Chief Pete Schultz to a committee to address this issue, develop a plan to include all signage, enforcement options, gate options, et cetera. And that plan is to be reviewed by the village council no later than December 31st of 2019.
I'll support that. And
There's a motion with support. Any discussion?
Question?
Mrs.
Would you
Summers?
be comfortable including the line prior to the road being open? Would it be approved? And I just don't want them thinking they can open it
Yes,
in September
yes,
because
yep.
they're getting started and
Yes, yep. I would, is that an amendment?
it's up to you.
I amend my motion to include the language prior to Dayton Street being opened.
and I'll support that.
And there is a support. Mr. Bailey, you had a comment?
I guess, yeah, one is that this motion does not get rid of the previous motion that passed
Correct.
in the last meeting. So until such time as something is actually done substantively, we're still going by what the council decided at last meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other further discussion?
Yeah, I have another item, which is that I wouldn't be surprised if some or all of the police vehicles have bolt cutters. So all you have to do is cut a link of the chain and it's open.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
No
Thank
fancy
you.
electronics
Thank you.
involved.
There is a motion on the table, and just point of order, there's a motion on the table, so we cannot accept any further public comment at this time. Thank you, though, for your comments. Any other further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries, and we move on to the village logo update consideration.
I did include some, about 7 or 8 pages from the community branding guide that was put out a couple years back. As you mentioned before, many pages in the guide were just examples of ads and stuff like that, so I didn't want to reproduce those unnecessarily. The main gist of it is the logo itself, the font. If you see the letterhead and stuff we've been using on our agendas and stuff like that, the Village of Oxford, Michigan, with the gazebo. That is more, I guess, what the thought process is. I think what we need to really kind of approve if there's going to be an official change. I guess this was never officially adopted, but this began to be being used.
Okay?
You have a comment, Rose?
Any comments?
I think she already made it.
Any comments from council?
I just need some clarification on what exactly we're looking to change. Are we
not-
looking to make change on the font?
Nope. We're not looking to change anything but approve those logos for use. We've been using them for some time, but it's come to my attention that this was never approved. This was a tech visit provided by Main Street, I believe in 2012? Has it been that long? So it's been some time. The DDA has used it. The banners that are downtown regularly uses it, but the village council's never officially approved it.
I see.
The village's official logo is the sign that's in front of this.
Got it. Now, I know at some point, and I can't remember exactly what meeting it was at, but we actually briefly discussed the option to, I don't know if it was to adopt this logo, but also to make some changes or updates to it, including the logo? Or I mean, I'm sorry,
Tagline?
the little tagline, slogan, whatever you want to call it, that we have? Is that still, if we vote to adopt this, is this going to be something that we can, at any time, make changes to?
Yeah, the logo itself, like I said, is specifically the Village of Oxford, Michigan, with the font and the gazebo. The small done right or things like that, I guess they're maybe part of a farther branding discussion or tagline discussion. That can be furthered, but until we adopt this officially, I think that'd be the step one.
Yeah, I think that's step one, it's just the logo. I'm not too hip on the small done right either, but we don't have to approve that portion of it. Just Yeah, Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, if I had to say yes or no on the question, is this package the best that could possibly be for the Village of Oxford? I'd have to say no. If you asked me, do you have any proposals to improve it? I would also say, I'm not a graphics designer. My answer is still no. It's pretty good, but it's not the best it could possibly be.
Mr. Davis?
Just point of, I have two other communities that are looking at logo issues, which are interesting because it seems to be what folks are doing now. So what we did in those two communities was we put together a small prize money and we did a logo contest. We sent it out to all the high schools, art schools, graphic designers who lived in the communities. And we got a ton of suggestions back, and the boards are going to select and issue the prize to the winner of the logo contest. So there's a lot of ideas out there, and that's how we've been fetching them in other communities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, if I had to say a specific complaint that I might have, it would be on the grounds of legibility. If I were to crash my vehicle because I was trying to decipher that strange font, I would be annoyed. And if somebody told me, well, you shouldn't have been trying to read it anyway, you should have been looking where you're going. Well, yeah, maybe so, but I think legibility is still an issue.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Safe driving is first.
Thank you. Ms. Logan?
So I just think, because there's a lot of transitioning happening in the next year and a half here in Oxford, I think it's a perfect opportunity to really look at this in depth and rebrand. I really like the idea of including the schools or in the community and really kind of making it either an artistic competition, if you will. My suggestion would be maybe to table this and really look at it, maybe even with DDA, in partnership, really to kind of look at this further down the road.
Thank you, Ms.
Rather
Logan.
than adopt something today.
Sure. To counter that, I agree with you to an extent, Ms. Logan, this has literally sat on the shelf since 2012. Taxpayer dollars from Oakland County helped provide this because we're a member of the Main Street community, and yet we've not really fully implemented it. So I'm not saying it's the greatest. I'm not saying it's the worst, but it's sort of a waste to have this at our disposal and continue to collect dust. Rose, do you have some comments?
Rose Bateman, Pearl Street. On the front of your podium here, you have a logo that was used for the longest time. I don't know when it got changed to have the gazebo there, but you also have a flag. It has the same thing on it. So are we saying we're going to scrap all that to go with something else?
Yes, we might. That's
We
what we're
might.
saying.
That's what we're saying, is we might. Logos very often get retired. Logos very often evolve over time. According to the 1912 Oakland County history, the residents of Oxford initially never wanted to be associated with Oxford, England, and I can provide you that quote. It's in the 1912 and the 1877 history of Oakland County. So I appreciate this, it's wonderful, but sometimes it's time for an update. Mr. Bailey?
Well, just looking at the font there, it's way, way more legible than this, unfortunately.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion then, in the interest that this is time sensitive somewhat, with hopes that maybe we can revisit this at a later date when things get a little more cemented or in place, to adopt the branding, or what do we want to call it here?
Logo.
The logo as submitted for the use of the Village of Oxford.
Support. There's a motion with support to adopt as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
right. Mr. Madore?
One thing that has come up, the 2020 project, the DDA working in the gateway signs north and south. So I don't know who's going to spearhead exactly what those signs are going to look like. That sounds like it's more of a DDA issue. Obviously, I think the council, the official logo would be incorporated into that. So that's why this is kind of coming to a point eventually of figuring out what it's going to be on those signs that'll be new next year.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
I assume
Madore.
maybe it'll be a tagline on the bottom of that signage. I'm not sure Glenn has that layout.
Okay, moving on to the consideration of a new depository. Terry?
Yeah, I brought this to you last month. This is not really an investment, it's just an option to open an account with another bank who has very favorable interest rates. They were at 2% last month. I didn't turn on the most current, but there's no fees, there's no minimum requirement, there's no minimum time that money has to be invested, so it's liquid, it can be moved in and out of the account. Currently, the pooled cash accounting system that we went to has given us the opportunity to see and to take our money and make some money with it. I've moved quite a bit into the Oakland County pooled cash account. That right now is at, I think, 1.5%. It's been as high as 2.3, but right now it's at 1.5 to 1.59928. So I'd just like to be able to, this bank is out of Grand Rapids. I met the individual, I think I may have given you his reference as well. And they have a 5-star rating. I gave you 2 different rating companies that do that. But I need your approval, according to our policy, to open up a new depository.
And we would still keep deposits at Oxford Bank, correct?
We would. The problem with Oxford Bank is that we are only insured up to the FDIC insured up to $250,000. We currently have $1.7 million in that account. 1.728184. Oh, I'm sorry, no. We've got 1.8 million. The other amount is in the investment pool cash account.
I see.
So these pooled cash accounts, what they do is they have other banks that they spread the money to, so we would be fully insured at any amount that we put in those banks because they, divide up their pot. They take it, all of the people who invest, and it's a pooled account for them. So it gives them the ability to be able to insure fully, and we, like I said, at Oxford, we can't. It's $250,000 for savings and checking for a total of $500,000. So we are uninsured right now for quite a bit of cash.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I move to approve opening an account with Independent Bank and authorize the clerk to take such actions with the signers as specified by our charter. Correct?
And your policy.
And our policy.
I support that as well.
Investment policy.
There's a motion with support to approve opening a depository account with Independent Bank. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Logan?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Helmut?
Yep.
All right, moving on to the chicken ordinance. I drafted this for last meeting and introduced this for a variety of reasons. Since then, I did some more digging on the zoning side. Initially, I just went to our code of ordinances, and our code of ordinance does not prohibit poultry or chickens, but our zoning ordinance does. And I think it's a little ironic, as we'll be discussing a little bit later, that according to the state of Michigan, every household in this village can grow 12 marijuana plants, but no chickens.
No chickens.
So in the spirit of even what our young friend Max had brought to us about local food, I think it's in everyone's best interest and the village's best interest to enable our citizens, if they choose, to be able to grow their own food. And that's why I brought this to us this evening. Mrs. Helmuth?
Marijuana plants don't attract rats. I had several neighbors with chickens. We had a huge rat problem. Chickens gone, rats gone. So I think we want to be really careful. I will take the marijuana plants over the rats any day.
Right.
I just don't, it's not apples and oranges.
Sure.
You can't just say, let's let people have chickens. It's bigger than that. We should get some other ordinances from other communities, you know, how you have to keep your yard, keep the rats away.
Mr. Madore?
Speaking of this over the years, part of the issues with the Michigan Department of Ag, there's a couple, they call them the GAMPs, generally accepted animal management practices. What they hone in on is the manure management and then the feed management. A, you have to keep your yard clean of the waste, and B, you also have to store your feed and stuff in containers where they can't be chewed through. You can't have just bags sitting out next to your garage. Once rats find a way, and they have to be in like steel containers and things like that. If you have complaints and you call the Michigan Department of Ag, they're going to call that resident and say, hey, how about next Wednesday? We want to come out and check your operation. They won't do surprise visits. So they'll call them and say, we want to come check out, see how you're doing, how's next Wednesday? You know, so the teeth aren't really there. We have to be more of a local enforcement. So again, to your point, if you have your local code has some teeth in it, that sometimes is better than trying to rely on the Department of Ag.
I see.
So,
Ms. Logan?
to that note then, I think what would be a good suggestion with this would be then limiting the amount of permits that are issued and kind of treat this as kind of a pilot base on maybe the first year, maybe even the first 2 years, to see how it goes with public interest, and then again with cleanliness. Obviously with rodent control in consideration as well. And again, I heard a comment in the audience about roosters, but this ordinance would not allow roosters. So you're looking at all female poultry, chickens, fowl. That would be for clarification, so you wouldn't have the noise.
Thank you, Ms. Logan. Mr. Davis, can we legally limit the amount of licenses in a given year, to do a pilot to see how well this works with, 3 or 4 or 5 residents and go from there?
I think you can limit where you do it, but within that box, how are we going to pick? Is it, we just...
Can you do a first come, first serve?
I can look at that
Okay.
and see if we can stage it such that we would go up to so many opportunities and then look at it after 1 year.
Ms. Logan?
And in addition to issuing permits and limiting the amount of residents that are allowed to use this program, I would suggest that they attend some kind of program. I'll do a little bit of research. I'd be interested to see if there's something out there, either through the Department of Agriculture.
Take a look at the best management practice guide.
And I would assume that the Michigan...
They give you some things you can go train.
I would assume the Michigan State University Extension would have some sort of program too, that we could bring a representative here, they could do sort of some, a workshop, some coursework, and could we tie attendance to that, to that license process?
We could see what they can, if they...
If they do something.
Right. That Michigan State, I think U of M supervises that, right?
And what I'm getting to as well, is not trying to build up the amount of criteria to make it unrealistic to apply for this permit, but really just to kind of narrow down the people that are very serious about doing this, right?
Yeah.
So not only just for public safety and health issues, but also for safety and consideration of the animal. But I think that with the, as far as really kind of being the teeth, as Joe said, with here at the local level, I think that we should be able to create some kind of waiver that they sign, obviously in order to be issued this permit that states that we can come and do an inspection at any time without warning. That way, if there is any kind of violations in place, that we can catch those people and make sure that they're their permit is
When you get
confiscated.
when you get involved in these and people undertake these activities, you begin to balance the Right to Farm Act against your zoning ordinance, and the Right to Farm Act always wins. So we'll have to take a look at that. What can we reasonably require people to do that doesn't violate the Right to Farm Act, which is a strong Michigan statute?
Right.
Which gives people a lot of latitude. Once you give them permission to do something, they get a lot of latitude. But the best management practice guides would be perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Logan. Would we like to extend this beyond chickens to include ducks?
Just change the verbiage to poultry, I would. You can eat duck eggs.
Mrs. Helmuth?
On C, a person residing in R1 residential district can keep no more than 4 chickens at any time. So if 5 people live in my house, do we get 20?
Well, this is just a sample. This,
Okay.
you know, this example comes from Ferndale. That's where I looked for inspiration. I also looked at Holly's, but I thought Ferndale's was more more regulatory, if you will. Moving forward, we would need to pass, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Davis, an ordinance, but we would also need to amend the zoning ordinance, correct?
Yeah. And if you look at number 9 on this Ferndale, it gives you the wording for what you want to research. Talks about the Michigan Department, the GAMPs.
Oh, right. What's council's pleasure on this?
I think we need some more research.
I make a motion to table this, to set this aside until the next regular council meeting.
Support. There's a motion with support to set this aside until our next regular council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Moving on to our ZBA vacancy. There is a vacant seat, but there's also 2 vacant alternate seats as well on the zoning board of appeals. We've had 2 applications. One came in today, so I was unable to get that to you folks today, but Mr. Dave Gerber has submitted an application, and Mrs. Tanya Hauser. So at this time, I move to appoint Mr. Dave Gerber to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term of 3 years, and appoint Mrs. Tanya Hauser as an alternate for the same duration. Would that be correct?
Yep.
For the same duration.
I'll support, and I have a personal comment. I have a long-standing conflict with First Monday, and if it will make things easier, I would be willing to serve as an alternate as opposed to a regular member.
You're the council member representative, though.
So we would have to find another council member
Yeah, we can't do that.
to be the regular member.
We can't do that
We
tonight
shouldn't do that. That should be on the agenda.
for next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
The next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Well, then I don't withdraw my comment, but
We'll take it up at the, yeah.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Was there any other comments from council?
I have a point of clarification.
Mr. Medor?
The vacancy we have is Marilyn Benner, who resigned.
Correct.
So the vacancy should be following her term. I'm not exactly sure what her term.
Correct.
She was in the middle of her term. She didn't expire.
Your person goes to the expiration
Yes,
of
so
her
her,
term.
Correct,
to fill
okay.
the same time frame that her.
Do we
term
need to
was.
amend that motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
fill out the same time frame as the.
Can we amend that motion with the support?
So instead of the 3
Okay.
years, it would be just to the term of the person.
I amend that motion to appoint Mr. David Gerber to fill out the term of the resigned position of Mrs. Benner.
Yeah, who seconded?
You did.
I?
Yes, you did.
I will support the new version of the motion as well.
You have to get sworn in, and we'll get you the dates, her term.
And we'll have
Sure,
Tanya sworn in as well as the alternate. Thank you both.
Did you vote on it yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you both for your service. And if you could work with the clerk at some point, at your leisure, to be sworn in to that board appropriate. Yep. And the next meeting, for their knowledge, the next meeting is when?
Well, the first Monday in July, but there's nothing.
There's nothing scheduled.
There's nothing on the agenda.
Nothing's been submitted, so maybe August.
If everything goes right.
Stay tuned, yeah. Stay tuned.
There's a Christmas party I'm in.
It's at your house this year. Your house.
I have to move my chickens and pot plants, but
Thank you both. All right, moving on to unfinished business, 10G, or rather, H, I think, at this point. Planning Commission recommendation regarding the recreational marijuana ordinance. And, you know, I guess I'm going to look at Mrs. Helmuth here, since you are the representative of the council on the Planning Commission. So if you could just get us up to speed beyond the memo.
We had a real good planning commission meeting the other day. Went for a couple hours. We went through a lot of the technicalities in the ordinance, things we want to talk about. And Ms. Annika over there, we could smack her. She finally expressed to us that ordinance amendments can only be done at regular meetings. Public hearings can only be done at regular meetings. We only have one regular meeting a month now. So in order to do this ordinance by September, we would have had to have written it that night and just been done with it. And that wasn't going to happen. So the Planning Commission recommended that the Village Council opt out of marijuana until an ordinance can be written. And Mario explained sunset clauses to us. We can opt out through a certain date, and then we're automatically in if we haven't adopted our ordinance by then.
Yeah, thank you.
Going on over there. So that's where the Planning Commission is. It can't be done by the September 1st. If the council adopts an opt-out ordinance, if we had the first reading at our regular meeting in July, at the second reading at our regular meeting in August, the ordinance would go into effect September 3rd, which is the first day Lansing's back from Labor Day weekend, and we'd be safe.
That's when they hit me.
Ms. Logan?
But I did send.
So, I'm glad you guys are finally talking about this, because we had that joint meeting back in April, on April 16th, right? So here we are 2 months later. The pen hasn't met the paper yet, so all I'm hearing is that we've wasted a whole lot of time. And per the moratorium that we all voted and chose to put on this issue, if somebody pulled a FOIA at this point, we're all liable, because nothing has been done. So we're all reluctant to get into this process in the first place because we don't want to waste people's time getting into it, but here we are, 2 months later, we wasted a whole lot of time. So I want to know why we're hashing out timelines now, rather than what I should be reviewing something, anything for consideration.
We had what we thought was a timeline, and everything was grand. And if we really got our nose to the wheel, we could have done it. But that didn't take into account that we can't have special meetings to do any of this. It all has to be done at regular meetings, and there aren't any regular meetings.
From what I hear, the Planning Commission wasn't going to meet last month. If anything, they should be bumping it up to 2 times a month they should be
The Planning
meeting.
Commission does meet 2 times a month.
Why haven't they been meeting about this?
Well,
The one right before that was the night before or the night after.
The town hall meeting.
Town hall meeting, so that's why they didn't then. And then the next meeting, they did end a meeting.
Because after the meeting on April 16th, it sounds like they had a lot of work to do and nothing's been done. So all I'm asking is why? Why is there nothing in front of me regarding any kind of written ordinance? And why hasn't Mario advised them that they should get moving on that if that's what was pending?
We went from April 16th, so next meeting was the first Tuesday in May. Did we meet the first Tuesday in May, Terry?
You had a public forum on the 20th, you had another joint special meeting, that was the 20th. And you wanted to wait until you got the comments?
The town hall meeting.
That was May 20th.
Yes, I say May 20th. And at that meeting, you had at least 2 commissioners stood up and said that they wished that you would consider, it's not their exact words, but asked that there would be a reconsideration for adopting the ordinance to prohibit, so that they could have time to develop an ordinance that would be a good ordinance, because Mario didn't have the timeline. Even the one that he presented, he had 3 weeks to come up with a completely written ordinance that covers 6 different criterias and 4 or 5 different subsections of what types of marijuana establishments you have to identify on the map where you want these places to be. I mean, they discussed C2, they discussed industrial and the flex zones. So there's a lot of things to consider, and it's just not something you want to throw together. It's got to come back before you. There's revisions that go back and forth. Before it even goes to the council, they have to have first and second reading. All that has to be noticed in the paper. It has to be published in its entirety before you even have the reading, then published again after the reading, and there was just no time to get it done, even had they started working on it already. It just was not good planning practices. It was poor, it was being rushed along just for the sake of adopting it, and you really don't even have the guidelines yet, so how do you do that?
And that's why they suggested the sunset clause, so we still can put our deadline on it, and it's gotta be done by that deadline, but we have to be able to have the meetings. We only meet once a month in the village council. And
How many meetings have we discussed this at? 3, at least, right?
okay, but we waited for your town hall meeting, and that took a month?
Yeah, 4 or 5 weeks, I think.
I mean, every time we do this, we put it off farther. Every one of us has pushed this off, so that's why it hasn't been decided. So if we do this, the planning commission has.
It was decided. It was decided that the planning commission was going to move forward with writing an ordinance. That's what was decided.
But you wanted to have a town hall meeting, so they didn't do anything till after that town hall meeting.
Ladies, all right, I know we're passionate about this topic, but we're not gonna shout at each other about it.
I just want to see something. I want to see something. There's no work to show for all of these conversations.
I can give you an update on what we did at the last meeting, which we should be doing at every meeting anyway.
Apparently moving us backward. Because
not moving us backwards, we are moving forward.
Okay, thank you, both for your comments. Any other comment on this?
I have a comment.
Mrs. Helmuth.
This is not a sunset clause. The language here is not a sunset clause. A sunset clause is, this ordinance is no longer in effect as of whatever date we put on there. This is hey, eventually we're gonna get back to this clause.
Mr. Davis?
I agree with you. The way it reads is the ordinance will be placed on the March 2020 meeting for consideration of repeal and the adoption of zoning ordinances to govern the establishments in the village. I'm not going to recommend that I put you in a position with a drop-dead date. The drop-dead date occurs, the prohibition is repealed, you don't have ordinances ready, and we have a gap period where somebody could apply and do whatever they want without regard to a zoning ordinance. If you want to do that, that would be against my advice.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
I would say though, now that
Mr.
everyone, I'm sorry, now that everyone's on the same page, we know where they're at. Mario presented the thing from Harrisville, looked good. I don't think when this date rolls around, I think you'll be done by then. I don't think that date will even come into play.
Because we can repeal it way ahead of this if
Yeah,
we're ready to
repeal
go.
it
If you're,
anytime.
if you're ready in October,
You
you're
can,
ready in
you
October.
can always repeal it. This is an outside date.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I
I
just
think
don't,
everyone's on the same page now at the planning commission.
I don't want
Feedback has been given.
to, I just can't recommend that I put you in a position where you have a potential gap period. But I understand Mo's concern that it just keeps kicking the can, but I'm worried about that gap period.
I move to move the drafted temporary prohibition of marijuana establishments to a first reading public hearing on July 9th, 2019.
I'll support.
There's a motion with support. Any discussion?
I just want to make it abundantly clear, sorry,
Ms. Kemp?
that eventually this will be repealed, though. I don't want it to appear to the voters that we're circumventing their will. That was my argument for the moratorium,
What will be repealed?
that this prohibition will be repealed.
That the prohibition will be repealed. That's not provided for in the current language.
No, but this mandates that it will come back to us for consideration of repeal, excuse me,
If it's not already done.
if it's not already done.
Yeah, but that's a separate issue.
Correct. Any other comment? Need a roll call on this?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Frost,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kemp,
No.
Helmut,
No.
Logan,
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Let's move on.
Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, water. Where's
Is there a motion? Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to go into recess.
There's a motion with support to go into 5-minute recess. We will return at 8:27. We are now in recess.
What timeline?
All right, we have returned from recess.
Yeah, you're right.
And we are still on our unfinished business. Planning Commission recommendation regarding recreational marijuana ordinance.
We're done.
We're done with that.
Yeah.
Well, where do we?
No.
Well, hold on, I got questions. I've got questions.
All right, okay.
No,
We have had a
So
quorum through all
there's been a
this.
motion and a vote to not pass or move forward.
Right.
Right, that's where we're at.
Hold on a second.
I would still like to see something pass
Hold
next.
on a second.
Sorry.
I'm going to say it very kindly, that everybody waits to be recognized by the chair.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Fair enough, sir. Sorry.
Mr. Davis, this motion has now failed. This is a point of order in terms of parliamentary procedure. Where do we go from here? Can this be brought back up at this time in another iteration, another version, a varying motion? Or is this completely dead on the floor and has to be kicked to another meeting?
Well, you could do a motion for reconsideration, which would have to be raised by a person who voted on the opposite side of the issue.
I see.
In other words,
In the negative.
in the negative. And then you would have to vote on accepting a motion for reconsideration, which would then, the issue would be back before you. But absent that, this particular ordinance draft has been rejected by the village council.
I have a question.
Mrs. Helmuth.
We can make, this can still be the first reading, we can make changes by the second reading, correct?
Yes.
And I would like to make a motion
let me make sure I understand it. So if in fact you pass this tonight as a first reading, number one, you're not bound to pass it. Number two, at the second reading, you can change it. Number three, at the second reading, you could reject it at the second reading.
I can change it in my motion, correct? Let me give you my motion, you tell me what I'm doing is okay.
I think so, because my motion was as presented.
Excuse me, Bob, doesn't there have to be a publication in the newspaper before the first reading?
Yeah, we'd still have to follow that whole procedure, but you're just talking about your motion language.
This can't be the first reading.
Tonight cannot be the first reading.
No.
Okay. Oh, the first reading's gonna be in July anyway, right? And the second reading's in August?
Correct.
Then I'd like to make a motion. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance opting out of marijuana establishments with a sunset clause. This ordinance will expire on June 30th, 2020.
Support.
There's a motion with support to amend the presented to have a sunset clause June 30th of 2020. Any discussion? And let me clarify, Mo, that takes us to a first reading and a scheduling of the public hearing on July 9th, correct? Does that need to be?
The first reading in July, yes.
Does that need to be in your, oh, I see, the first reading, yep. Okay,
The next meeting.
next meeting. Okay. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Helmuth,
Yes.
Logan,
No.
Frost,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Moving on to consideration of purchase of the MXU water meters. Mr. Brantley?
Can't believe it's almost done, Don.
John Brantley, Public Works Supervisor. Tonight I'm here to request the purchase of 197 MXU remote water meter readers. We've been doing this program since 2014. This will conclude the program and the entire village will be all radio read to read our water meters.
Wonderful.
I'm requesting that we purchase them from Aetna Supply, which we purchased in the past. We did get quantity pricing for $150 each. They're normally $170. I'm requesting $29,550 to finish the program.
And this is in our new budget, so we would order these come July 1.
I'm gonna order them probably now.
They'd be paid for in the budget.
And they'll be paid for in the July 1 budget.
Okay, great. I think it's a great opportunity to finish off the project. And I know it makes your job more efficient as you read water meters, so I appreciate that. I move to approve the purchase of 197 MXU remote readers from Aetna Supply for the purchase price not to exceed $29,550.
Support.
There's a motion with support. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Helmuth,
Yes.
Logan.
Yes.
Frost.
Yes. Thank you, Don.
Thank you very much, Council.
All right, moving on to the tree removal proposals. I guess you stay there.
Don't move it.
We went out for bid quotes for some tree removals in the village. We have a running list. Each year we reevaluate some trees, and this year we'd like to remove 9 trees, easement trees. So what we did is we went out for bid, had 3 companies come in, give us pricing on these trees. And typically, when we get these bids from tree companies, usually one tree company wins the entire bid. This time I looked at doing a la carte service. It's gonna save us about $1,500. Each tree company will get 3 trees to remove. and I'm requesting a $7,100 expenditure for the removal of these trees at a roughly $1,500 savings.
Thank you, Mr. Brantley. Mr. Medora, is this in the upcoming fiscal year budget?
Yes.
Okay.
This is in the current budget.
It's in the current budget.
Current-
Okay.
Wrapping up the current
budget.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
we're gonna have to do a couple budget amendments.
within the
To carry
cost
over.
centers.
Okay. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, I'm familiar with one of the trees that was mentioned, which is the one on First Street. Do you know what the status of that one is? That is to be included?
That one is not getting removed.
Not included,
No, not
okay.
this time. No.
My comment was going to be that I'm definitely undecided about the desirability of that tree. On the one hand, it could crash down onto a house. On the other hand, it does provide, in my opinion, valuable shade in the summertime. So, I don't know whether to support it or say to chop it down.
It's on the list to be, we're watching that tree. The trees that we're taking down have large rotted sections in them, they're diseased, they have ants in them, so we don't take trees down unless
Yeah.
absolutely.
This one literally is 4 feet. It's 4 feet DBH. I couldn't believe it when I looked at it, really. And how big is this tree actually? It's very big.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Brantley, one question. Each year, we take down trees. Each year, we don't put any trees up. The best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is right now. And so thinking about the future generations, and I understand there are concerns with water lines, sewers, and infrastructure, but I also understand for the most part, we know where those items are, correct?
Correct.
So could we, in addition to moving this forward, could we start looking at a program to start replacing some of these?
Look at that, yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for the Village of Oxford to contract with 3 different companies recommended by the DPW superintendent for the removal of 9 village easement trees for a cost not to exceed $7,100.
Support?
There's a motion with support to approve the removal of trees as presented. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Logan,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Council.
All right, stop sign installation, Chief Sowald?
Evening, Council. Chief Mike Sowald, Oxford Village Police Department. I'm glad you're here. I'm proposing stop sign additions for East Street and also for Pontiac Street. And reasons for that is on East Street, for years it's been known and traveled many times that East Street is a major cut through to avoid the light downtown for east and west traffic. Along with daily traffic, when school is in session, commuters use East Street to get to the schools quicker. Also, for years, local residents on East Street have complained of speeders, and most homes have children at play. Recently, a vehicle flipped upside down after crashing into a parked car. Thankfully, it was a parked car. As I was assisting my officer on the scene, residents came out to me pleading change and suggested a stop sign at Division and East, which will be halfway between Glassby Street and Lout Street, which will kind of break up be a halfway point between Glassby Street and Lout Street. Although we know that stop signs are not always the cure for all traffic behavior, this will certainly break traffic up and slow people down in that midway point. The Oxford Police Department has written many tickets over the years on this stretch of road and have witnessed the speed and traffic flow for sure. It is recommended that stop signs be installed at Division and East Street at the residents' request as soon as we can do that. And also, since I mentioned the stop signs, it's also been requested recently that since we've added an additional stop sign at Pontiac and Moyer Street, I've had residents inquire the confusion that there is at Pontiac and Dennison Street now. So traffic going north and south now, stop at Moyer, stop at Park, and then there's decide whether they're not sure if they should be stopping at Dennison or not. And we do get quite a bit of traffic flow in that section also because people like to cut through from 24 down Dennison to West Street and back. Everybody knows very well that happens. And that is the main school traffic road. So additional stop sign there, I think, would warrant justice for that. And we are certainly asking the permission for the village council to add an additional stop sign on Pontiac Street at Dennison, as well as East Street and Division Street. I talked to Don with DPW, Don Brantley, and he stated the signs and materials for this to install 4 stop signs would cost approximately $160. So this evening, I'm requesting a stop sign be added to the East and Division Street location to slow traffic down, since commuters like to use that as a cut-through, as well as Pontiac and Dennison Street.
And Chief, do you know if this has been budgeted for?
This has not been budgeted for.
So we would have to perhaps look and do it into the new budget.
Into the new budget year, or possibly do an amendment to this year's budget.
I'd have to look and see where we're at. I don't know if there's monies left in that particular local, those are both being, well, one's local, one's major, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Helmuth?
I don't have a concern with the one at Dennison Division and East. I think that's a great idea, make it a 3-way stop. I do have concerns about Pontiac and Dennison, only because now you're gonna stop traffic every block. You don't think that's a problem?
We're in a row.
I don't in a residential area, and that being the major school flow, I don't have a problem with that, especially if they're already stopping as it is anyway, because they're confused as to why they stopped twice and why there isn't one there. That's from what I'm getting from the residents.
What, did you consider moving the one from Park to Dennison?
I have not considered that, but that's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, I set myself a question to ask myself. What if there was no stop signs at all? Like, including none at Burdick. And now suddenly it's proposed we're going to have 4 in a row, every block. Burdick, Dennison, Park, Moyer. Would I, as a member of council, say, yeah, do it, put in 4 in a row? And I don't know what my response would be, actually. It's a hypothetical.
And I get it. The perception for stop signs is basically to break traffic up and slow traffic down. I would rather slow traffic down with a stop sign and have another area for people to stop, because we do get quite a bit of traffic flow in those areas. So that would be my recommendation with the 26 years of service that I've been in this community and has seen the streets and where it warrants these stop signs. I feel highly sure that those would be excellent areas for those stop signs for the traffic flow that we get in those areas.
Mrs. Helmuth?
We're not members of TIA anymore, are we?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
And again, I bring these to you also as the residents have come to me as well. This isn't just the police department proposing this. These are residents that have come to me when I'm at accident scenes. These are residents that are emailing me or talking to me on the street. So I bring you these concerns from our residents.
Ms. Kemp?
What, do you think there would be a benefit of moving it from Park to Dennison, or having it at all 4?
I think that would warrant discussion, but I think a stop sign at every intersection, I think that would be my opinion to do, instead of having one here and then skipping one and going here. I think that would create some confusion there. I think a stop sign, stop sign, stop sign.
Mrs. Helmuth?
If we put stop signs at every intersection in the village, we'd never get
I knew
anywhere.
that was coming.
Well, I'm sure you had to. You knew.
I know, I'm not trying to be the stop sign police.
20 years.
These are requests from the residents, and as the police department, we see it as well. Like I said, the car was flipped upside down on East Street. They come to me, they said, we've got children that play on this street. People bypass this road, this is East Street I'm referring to, bypass the light to come down our street. We see it all the time. People either speeding or running the stop signs. And we've written those violations in those areas, and we do see the traffic flow in there. So that would, I think, would warrant a stop sign to break that up in the halfway point. As well as the Dennison and Pontiac Street, I think that warrants one as well for the traffic flow that we get going from east to west, especially at certain times of the day.
Thank you. And I agree, I think, with with all of these locations, and thank you for bringing this to us, and thank you for communicating with the residents on these matters. With M24 and that project coming up, we should anticipate higher cut-through traffic, as it's been called. So I think that putting these traffic control mechanisms in place now makes sense. That way people have a whole year to get used to them. They're there, and it reduces the traffic. It may back up the traffic and slow it down, but that's exactly what we want to do. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, question about motivation here. I myself do not have any ulterior motives in making a decision about this, but somebody else might think that I have an ulterior motive. Sorry, I don't. And I anticipate that the traffic on Pontiac Street will decrease if we put in extra stop signs. People will take other routes. They say, I'm not going to stop every block. I'm going to go by a different route. Well, but what other route? And well, for some people, there will be another route. But at least for myself, that's a bum rap. I do not have any other ulterior motive. I'm not trying to keep drivers out of the village, none of that nonsense. I'm concerned specifically with the issues of the individual stop signs. I just thought I'd say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
I'll make a motion to approve stop signs at the intersection of Division and East.
Just that one?
Just that one.
Okay. I'll support it.
I think they need to be at Pontiac and Denison as well.
Well, I think that could be another motion.
Okay.
You have to call for a vote.
So there's a motion with support to approve stop signs at East and Division Street. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries. My vote is because I think they should be at both. That's my no vote.
Make a second motion on the other one.
What's that? We can do a second motion?
If somebody wants to.
If somebody wants to.
I move to also approve stop signs at Pontiac and Denison.
I'll support that also.
There's a motion with support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Do a roll call.
Hold on a second. Let's just trickle them in there.
Sorry.
Let's do, Madam Clerk, roll call,
Yeah,
please.
there's a roll call.
Yep.
Yes.
Sullivan,
No.
Hogan,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. All right, thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
I'll work with Chief to make sure they get properly funded. If we don't have money right now, rather than doing a late amendment, we'll just do it July.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Resolution 2019-12, a resolution celebrating the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, giving women the right to vote. We received this right before last meeting, but not quick enough to put it on the agenda. But this comes to us from Oakland County on behalf of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, and they're requesting our assistance as they honor and celebrate this important milestone in our nation's history, which is the passage of the 19th Amendment. And I did not know until the other day when I was preparing for this meeting that Michigan was one of the first 3 states to ratify this on June 10th of 1919, 100 years ago. So Michigan sort of paved the way, if you will. It came to us first, and we ratified it. And so I know Ms. Logan has been reaching out to the Board of Commissioners' contact here to receive one of these 100th anniversary 19th Amendment flags. And if we can get a hold of that, I think it'd be wonderful to fly that at...
We have the flag.
You have the flag. Excellent. Even better. Problem solved. One less thing to worry about. I think we should fly that at Centennial Park. Not only that, but I think at the next Concerts in the Park, not this week, but next week, whatever date that is, and I'll make a motion to make this happen. Here, let me look at the calendar.
20th.
The 20th. I make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-12.
Don't you think a woman should do that? We'll just vote no when he
I'm
does
showing
it, then
my
we can do it.
support.
You just sit down and let a woman do it, darling.
You can vote,
No, it's fine.
you can vote, let me finish my comment then.
Male allies are needed, go ahead.
We should, I'm a feminist at heart, okay? I was gonna let you vote on it.
You were gonna let me?
I'm kidding, okay.
In the spirit of
Hold on a second, all right.
Well, don't put a sunset clause.
No. So, I think we should fly the flag at Centennial Park on the 20th at the Concerts in the Park series. I think maybe we can carve out some time. Again, I'm just thinking out loud. I've not talked to Glenn about this, but maybe we recognize the fact that the flag is there. We invite the Board of Commissioners, they're asking us to do this. We invite the Board of Commissioners, we invite council, we invite everybody we can invite. We invite our representative in Congress, Alyssa Slotkin. We invite our state House of Representatives, Representative Riley, and whoever else we want to invite. But I know it's a short amount of time, but let's make a big deal of the fact that we got a flag that we can fly and honor. Now, I also saw that Michigan Municipal League has a toolkit for the next year. Because the idea is that, yes, it was started to be ratified in June of 1919, but it wasn't fully an amendment until the following year of 2020. We want to be looking at events anyways for 2020 and continuing to get people downtown, but maybe we think about some sort of event downtown or similar. One of the recommendations was that we could even do an honorary street name change and do some signage or something, that recognizes one of the suffragettes, perhaps from Michigan. Maybe the Historical Society could find this the name of an Oxford, mother or daughter who was involved in the suffrage movement 100 years ago, and maybe that, whatever that street name we choose, we could do it in honor. So that's my 2 cents. That's my man sense. And
So it's nonsense.
so I'll pass it over to the majority woman council to support this.
Oh my God. You want to do it, Carol?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 1912 in honor celebration in support of the passage of the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote.
Support?
There's a motion with support. All those in favor? Aye. Those.
No. Roll call on a
Oh, needs a
resolution.
roll call. My apologies.
That's all right.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Hellman.
Yes.
Frost.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
Logan.
Votes for women, yes. Yes.
Mr. President.
Mr. Medora.
Just so happened that I was going through our code of ordinances today, page by page. I got about 300 some pages, and I went by the page about street name signs.
Okay.
And there's quite a process to do so. I think it's part of the charter, maybe even if it's the charter or something like that.
Even if it's honorary? We
I
won't
don't know.
officially change the name, because
Okay,
then that
there you
triggers
go. There you go.
the postal service and all that. We don't want to do
And the
that.
name is tough.
We don't want to do that.
But you could do a
We could do it
temporary
honorary. Okay,
Gotcha, 10-4.
okay.
You think should name it after
Do we need a motion to fly that flag at Centennial Park and do this little shindig at
Oh.
the concerts? Okay.
Just do it.
Don,
Just
let's
do
figure
it.
out a way to get the second flag mounted on there, right?
Oh. I didn't think of that, but. Okay. All right. All right,
It's in Secretary's office, if everyone would like to see it tonight.
well, maybe we take a picture of it tonight with council after, or before, if you want to grab it before we close or something. All right, moving on, Oakland County Local Road Improvement Program Agreement.
Yeah, this was just the 3-year program, the third-party program, I think they call it. The monies that we're going to be using to help us pave Burke Street. It comes with strings, and the strings are to sign the agreement and to follow the rules. I have to do a follow-up report after the project's done and stuff like that. It was spelled out in there.
Okay.
So I would recommend that we approve, to authorize me to sign it on the village bid packet.
I'll make a motion approving the local road improvement matching funds pilot program and granting Joseph Madore, allowing Joseph Madore to sign that on our behalf.
Support. There's a motion with support to approve the presented agreement. Roll call vote, please.
Bailey?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Hogan?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes. Right, moving on to items removed from the consent agenda. Seeing none, there was one that was moved, but we moved back. There wasn't anything else that was removed, correct? Okay. At this time, we have public comment. I think I saw Sue first. Ms. Basardi?
Joe, thank you for thinking of the trees.
Oh, thank you.
She is the Lord.
Tanya?
My name is Tanya Heiser. I live at 34 Lafayette Street. I just have a couple things. Joe, we're not going to be repaving Burdick when we're doing 24, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
That'll be July.
Clarify that.
Yeah.
The stop sign at Pontiac and, what street is it that the next? Denison? My daughter will thank you because the new one is throwing off her OCD. Because if you're stopping here and you're stopping here, why aren't you stopping here? I also grew up in a small town, and you know what? You did have a stop sign on every corner. You stopped at 1st Street, you stopped at 2nd Street, you stopped at 3rd Street, all the way down to 11th Street. There's a stop sign at every single corner. So it's not something new. And with the construction, you're gonna need those stop signs. The people are gonna cut through, they're gonna cut through Unpleasant to get to Burdick, to get to Pontiac. Every single road, even the dirt roads and gravel roads, are gonna see traffic. There's not gonna be any other way to get around it, including Oxford Lacey and everything. But they did it now anyways. My other question was the chickens and the ordinance. I'm all fine for people having chickens. I hope they're not next to my house. But I think that there does need to be more, like you can't have a chicken on a 12 by 12 deck. Or if you live in an apartment,
Yeah.
how are you gonna have a chicken?
Right, and that ordinance takes into account what the backyard is.
Right, it has to
You
be
know,
like a certain size.
Yeah, and again, that's just a sample ordinance, and for instance, my home doesn't really have a backyard, so my house would not qualify. It has to have a backyard.
Okay.
You know, and so there's a lot of properties that have very deep lots where it would make sense, but there's other places where it wouldn't make sense.
Okay, so, I mean, again, I grew up in a small town. We went to Westville every Saturday and picked our eggs from the chickens because you got them cheaper if you picked them yourself than having a farmer do it. So us as kids, that was the cool thing to do. And then my grandma would load up the back of her trunk and take them to work and sell them at work on Monday. Because fresh eggs are the best eggs you'll ever have. They're not sitting in a store on a shelf or in a refrigerator for 8 weeks before they hit the grocery store. And then we were talking about, is it possible to talk to MDOT about possibly putting in speed bumps on Dayton during the construction? Because that is a dead end. A lot of kids play on that street. There is, no matter what, going to be a lot of cut through. So for the safety of the community and of the kids, I think we need to put some safety precautions in place, if at all possible.
I think we'll refer that to that committee of the manager and the two chiefs. See where it goes there, but thank you for that suggestion. Hold on a second. Yeah.
And then we were also talking about collaborating with Oakland County Sheriff about patrolling that side of Waterstone, because that is their jurisdiction, not the village's jurisdiction. So just as Waterstone's gonna cut through Dayton, people from Dayton will also probably watch that as well. So maybe, I mean, like you said, or you can't be there 24/7, but I think the more people you have at least attempting, you can cut some of it back.
We network with the sheriff's department, we'll work on that.
And then, the remote control for the arm or whatever, they do have, I like the breakaway idea, that's pretty cool. I just don't know if MDOT will spend the money to do it, if they're just gonna have to take it down. And as you know, they have ones that the fire trucks have, they can honk their horn and it will open. I don't think the neighbors will appreciate that at 2 o'clock in the morning. Or they have a remote control.
Yeah, we'll take a look, we'll have them take a look at everything. You know, I know that emergency vehicles in some situations have a remote to change signals. Obviously, there's not going to be a signal there, but, you know.
I just don't think MDOT's gonna spend money on that if they're just gonna have to
Right,
turn around and tear it down and put everything back again.
And there may need to be, and this is something that could be discussed with that committee as well, there may need to be some fire department funds that are part of this. So anyways, so with that, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're getting kind of late on time, so maybe one more comment and then.
The last thing I had was. I guess that was it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, you had a comment real quick? The fastest comment of your life.
Yeah. I'm not addressing it to her because I'm not supposed to under the conditions. So I'm putting it out there into the air.
Okay.
Somebody might be interested in contacting the Charter Township of Oxford with regard to speed bumps, because speed bumps are like stop signs. 2 speed bumps is worth more than twice 1 speed bump. So if we can get the township to install one as well, great.
Cool, thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we're moving on to manager, staff, and attorney reports. Mr. Modore?
The Burdick Street paving, we're still planning that for July timeframe, seeing how the MDOT grant didn't come through, we aren't restricted for those paperwork. So we haven't nailed down a date exactly yet. We're still looking for it in July, though.
Okay. That's it? Terry?
I've submitted several things to MuniCode. I got all of the 2019 minutes are on MuniCode. The charter updates have been submitted. So we're making progress.
Good. Cool. Thank you.
All set, sir.
Mr. Davis, thank you. All right, moving on to council comments. We'll start with Mr. Bailey.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Ms. Kemp?
I received an email today from MML, which some of you may have seen already. So there is a webinar on June 27th at 10 a.m. Concerning the emergency regulations for marijuana. So they're going to have Andrew Bisbo, he's the executive director of the Marijuana Regulations Agency, and I would like to encourage the Planning Commission to attend as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a cost to that webinar,
I believe, yes,
correct?
there's 20?
30 bucks. And could they,
35 bucks.
could they listen to that as a whole, or?
Yeah, they could probably group together if they wanted, but then they'd have a quorum and be a meeting.
Some of them will be at work.
Some of-
Some of them
right,
have to
right,
watch it at their work.
Is there an option on there? Does it say if there's a recorded option, we could listen to it later?
This one doesn't say that, the email doesn't say, but I believe they have done it in the past.
Okay.
The marijuana one I went to back in December.
Right.
3 weeks later was out for
Right,
everybody.
it was.
Got the email to share.
We'll play that one right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Kemp. Mrs. Helmuth?
The cable offices had their grand opening ribbon cutting. Had quite a large group there. Really tasty treats, especially the lemon bars. It's nice offices if you've ever been out there. They got a lot of space, except for Connie, who's kind of in a closet, which is okay. We like her there. The parking lot's in. Is it striped?
July 2nd.
It'll be striped. If you wait till July 3rd, it'll be striped. And speaking of that,
It should be closed on July 2nd so that all of that can be done. We can verify that with Ron.
everybody have a great 4th of July, because we're not meeting again.
Yeah, right. Ms. Logan?
Just a few things. I think you all know how frustrated I feel about the marijuana issue, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It seems that there seems to be real concern about timelines, but it's, for me, the frustration is really behind, this was voted on back in November of last year, and before that, it was on the ballot to be voted on, and then before that, it was a ballot initiative. We knew this was coming. So for me, it's really just looking at the people in this room and the rate of acceptance. It's just not what I thought where we would be at. So it's to watch, you know, us have an opportunity to get ahead of this for once and then abandon what was already decided and delay progress is very frustrating. There's many other municipalities that have done this successfully by doing their jobs, and I guess it seems that we've shown our residents that most of us are just not willing to do that. But to turn it positive, if I can, I did reach out to the Goddard School in efforts to begin talks about possibly doing some contracted work in order to offer childcare for our meetings. I think it's part of the entire civic engagement that we've been wanting to see more of at these meetings. That way we'd be giving an opportunity for working families that have small age or younger school age children to be able to use services here during council meetings to attend them. So it sounds pretty reasonable. They're going to come back and tell us what that looks like as far as everything from, you know, liability to what it would cost, but it sounds like it's going to be a very low cost, if any. So it's the personnel and the interest from their side is there. So I'm really excited to move forward with that and possibly offer that program maybe even as soon as by the end of the summer.
Is it possible to have something by the next meeting, on the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, something to approve, I mean.
Yes,
Or
I will
look-
follow up
look
with
at,
them and
review,
we
okay.
can get it on the agenda for next meeting. That'd be great.
It's an interesting idea. I think the community room would be appropriate for that. If it, as long as it, I mean, we had Max here today, so as long as it encourages our residents to get here. We've been fortunate, we've had a lot of controversial things, so this room has been fuller than it's been in some time, but yeah, okay. I guess I'll transition into my comments. I thank you all for all of your comments. Don, thank you for bringing the trees and the water meter issue to us. Continue to do the good work that you guys have been doing. I noticed the banners are up for the concerts. It looks wonderful. You know, we're transitioning into summer, so, you know, keep up the good work there. Chief Sowald, same thing. You know, I know you guys are busy, and thank you for showing us in the hallway the vests that your officers are starting to transition to. It seems to make sense, and I appreciate your proactiveness on a lot of these things and continue to be, you know, to lead by example and to move the department forward. So keep up the good work there. Similarly, staff, again, you know, we've had a lot of topics on our agendas, but you guys stay on top of it, and I appreciate all of your work behind the scenes. There's a lot of work that the general public doesn't see, so keep up the good work there. Thank you. I do want to make one small comment, you know, and that's to the tune of social media. You know, there's a few forums in our community, and I will say that social media is an incredible resource if used correctly. It's, however, a double-edged sword when used incorrectly. And I just want to remind our residents that, you know, although there are comments on social media, that those comments often do not reflect what the official position is of the Village of Oxford. One such comment I saw was that the village council, this council, believe it or not, has done away with the Lone Ranger event. That for some reason, we are at fault, we are at blame for that event going away. I still don't know what's going on with that event, but I will say that this council has never, or has not received an application for that event. So it's very difficult for us to take action on something that has not come before us. So for what all it's worth, although you may read it on social media, it may or may not be true. So I encourage our residents to attend our meetings and hear, you know, what's actually happening.
Real quick, it is, thank you for pointing out that social media is by no means journalism.
Absolutely, right.
But
fake news?
It is, I do have a story from Marley. The Lone Ranger Parade is off. I talked to Rod Charles. Basically, he said because no one was coming forward, he didn't want to do it again this year, no one came in, so they are not having it, so.
Okay, so if that didn't pick up on the mic, CJ has just told us that the Lone Ranger is off for lack of participation or whatever the reasons are. Read it in CJ's article, it'll be out tomorrow. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:13.
Support? There's a motion to adjourn at 9:13. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.